What makes these mangas so unique and compelling, you can't stop reading until you know what happens next. Waiting weeks, sometimes months, and even years for the next chapter to come out. Is it the art style, the story, or the paneling? Well, there's actually a lot more factors that dictates whether a manga is good or not. And I decided to spend the last month figuring this out for the chance to win a $3,000 cash prize. The cash prize is offered by the Global Comic Awards if you place first in their competition. So the plan was simple. I just had to make a manga and place first in a competition against hundreds, possibly thousands of talented and skilled mangakas. Yeah, the plan is so simple. The rules of the competition was to submit an 8 to 16 page one-shot on the theme of legend. A one-shot manga is a standalone story, usually shorter than a regular series that tells a complete narrative in a single chapter or volume. Examples of this would be A Silent Voice, Goodbye Eri, and one of my favorites, Bibliomania. One-shots are perfect for experiencing a creator's style and creativity without committing to a long series. I've only ever drawn in a manga style once, and that was my take on Junji Ito's Uzumaki. I wanted to make some similar panels in my manga, but I also have to be realistic with my time. This drawing alone took me nearly 13 hours, and I still need to come up with an idea, write a story, draw the storyboards, and draw the manga panels by myself. But I wouldn't be able to start right away because just after I found out about the competition, I went on vacation, and honestly, I just wanted to focus on relaxing, but my workaholic artist brain just wouldn't turn off. I kept thinking about the manga but had no idea where to start. So whenever I had a moment to myself, I decided to watch Bakuman. Long story short, it's an anime about two high school friends who dream of becoming professional mangaka and dive into the competitive world of the manga industry. It gives an exciting behind the scenes look at how manga is made, from brainstorming ideas to drawing and dealing with editors, all while showing the challenges and dedication it takes to succeed. While watching, I got a crash course in the insane work ethic of mangakas and the creative challenges they face. Things like pacing, storytelling, paneling, and artistic skill aren't just obvious skills, they're make or break elements. Seeing those struggles play out in the show gave me so much respect for manga authors and a clearer sense of how much effort and thought goes into every page. So even though I was technically on vacation, I wasn't just binge watching anime. I was analyzing everything, breaking down scenes and brainstorming how I could apply their principles to my own manga. Watching Bakuman gave me a better understanding of what makes a great manga, and now I had to put that knowledge into practice. But first, I needed an idea. I knew I wanted to base my story on one of my original characters, but deciding which one took some time. After a day of pondering, I chose Valkyria, a character whose lore I briefly introduced in my 1 vs 100 brushes video. The theme of legend fit her perfectly, so I decided to dive deeper into her origin story. To organize my thoughts, I started writing a short synopsis. It helped me capture the core of what I wanted Valkyria's journey to be like and the story I wanted to tell. With the basics laid out, I could finally start turning my ideas into something tangible. The story I came up with follows Valkyria after her parents die. Hearing a familiar tune from a cave, deep inside, she discovers a rare mirror etched into the stone, an artifact from a legend she was once told as a child. This mirror grants a reflection to those who gaze into it, but the reflection changes over time, shaped by how you see yourself. If you believe your actions are just, your reflection will be beautiful. If not, it will appear grotesque and incapable of granting wishes. Those with a beautiful reflection may receive a single wish annually, but the wish must be precise or its outcome may differ. The reflection knows all your secrets, evolving as you do, but it is bound to the cave and will perish if taken from it, unless a loophole is found. With the synopsis complete, I felt ready to start building out the story. but this is where things started to go downhill. While I had a clear, broad idea of what I wanted my manga to focus on, I made a huge mistake. I didn't actually write a script. I thought I could just follow the story from my synopsis and figure it out as I go. Looking back, this ended up wasting a lot of time later on. If you're planning to create a manga, trust me, write a script first. It's especially important to nail down your dialogue-heavy scenes, as those were the most challenging for me to figure out on the spot. Still, I wanted to keep the momentum going, so after I finished the synopsis, my next step was to come up with a compelling title, something that would be both memorable and clickable. I brainstormed for a while, running through different ideas, and luckily, I managed to come up with a few strong contenders. Echoes of Eternity. Meh. Shadows of the Mind. Nah. Reflections of the Soul's Eye. Nope. Mind's Eye. Getting closer, but still not the one. And then I found it. Mirror's Mind. It had a great ring to it. To make sure it felt right, I even faked a casual conversation with myself. Hey yo bro, did you read this week's new chapter of Mirror's Mind? It went crazy. Yep, that sounds good. With the title Mirror's Mind locked in, I felt like I was finally making progress. But there was one big challenge ahead. The rules required the story to fit within 8 to 16 pages. Given how complex my story was, I knew I'd need every single one of those pages. When I got back from vacation, there was only 17 days left until the deadline. No time to waste, I started sketching out all the pages side by side to visualize the story's flow. Since manga is read from right to left, I laid out the pages in this format. But here's where my excitement got the better of me. Instead of sticking to the storyboard process like I learned from Bakuman, I kept skipping ahead to draw the panels I was most excited to bring to life. So my first drawing actually started on page 13. I knew I wanted it to be a full page spread, dedicated to the antagonist's reflection, and put as much energy as possible into this drawing. And like any mangaka who dedicates an entire page to a single panel, I wanted to make it stunning. The panel is the reflection of the story's villain, a cruel, evil character whose actions they believe are justified, giving them a hauntingly beautiful reflection. I got inspired by other godlike beings in manga, aiming to recreate an ethereal and iconic look. Thankfully, Procreate's symmetry tool saved me a ton of time on this design. My favorite detail from this page ended up being the eye. I was truly in the zone when I drew it, and even now, I'm not sure if I could recreate it. The process was so thrilling, but also really exhausting. I would have loved to add a bunch of cross-hatching in my manga, like I did for my piece inspired by Junji Ito. But that's when reality hit me. Again, I had set the bar too high with this page, and to maintain a cohesive quality throughout the manga, I'd have to go all out on every other page too. This single drawing took 3 days to complete, leaving me with less than 14 days for 15 more pages. Doing the math, 3 days per page with only 2 weeks left, it was clear the numbers weren't adding up. My motivation started to plummet and my stress skyrocketed. I still loved how this page turned out, and it's one of my favorites. After all, I ended up liking this panel so much that it became the book cover and the thumbnail for this video. After finishing this page, I needed to go back and try to make the story more cohesive. Spoiler alert, this wasn't a good idea. My impatience completely derailed my storyboard process, and what should have taken me a few hours to plan out my story stretched over 15 hours. By the time I finished my storyboard, my excitement had clashed with reality. I learned another tough but valuable lesson about how much discipline this process really requires. Skipping steps would just end up wasting more time later on. If you're one of the few that's still watching and didn't just skip to the end of the video, then comment a mirror emoji. Thanks! With my stress mounting and time slipping away, my only option was to lock in and push through as many pages as possible each day. Some days, my motivation was so low that I'd abandon a page halfway through and jump to another one. Ironically, this chaotic approach ended up helping me in the long run. On certain days, I could finish multiple half-completed pages and make a noticeable progress. For 2 weeks, I was in full grind mode. I didn't talk to anyone. My days became a rinse and repeat cycle. Wake up, draw. Eat, draw. Eat, draw. Sleep, repeat. It didn't take long to realize that I couldn't maintain the same level of detail across every panel. To save time, I decided to switch to a more cartoony, chibi version of Volcaria for dialogue-heavy sections. This move was a lifesaver, cutting down my workload significantly while still trying to keep the story engaging. But even with that shortcut, the page numbers were brutal. With 11 pages left and only a week remaining, I needed to draw at least 2 pages a day. On the last day, I need to finish 3. I tried to ease the pressure on my future self by aiming to complete 3 pages per day in advance, but most days I barely managed 2, some days only 1. Those slower days hit me hard, and I often felt defeated, angry, and in pain with how much my back and my wrist was hurting. With 5 days left and 9 pages to go, the pressure was real. I decided to finally work on the first page, knowing it needed to be captivating since it's the first thing readers see. While I continued jumping from page to page like a monkey with a pencil, I couldn't help but wonder, do professional mangakas skip around like this? Or do they draw their pages in order? I guess I'll never know. For the opening page, I added hooded figures blending into the darkness of the bushes, preparing to ambush Volcaria and her family. To stop the carriage, they had to eliminate the horse. Sorry little guy, it's for the plot. I envisioned a dramatic top-down view of the carriage surrounded by bushes that gradually transformed into a tree as you moved down the page. Initially, I had the villain's eyes on a different page, but after some much-needed critique from my girlfriend, I decided to scrap that page and incorporate those eyes into the first page for a better flow. That adjustment was a game changer, and I was really happy with how it turned out. 3 days left and 6 pages still unfinished. I had to speed up my work, but I was so drained that even my slower than usual pace wasn't enough. Despite exhaustion, I found joy in working on the larger panels that dominated entire pages, even though they ate up most of my time. Another one of my favorite pages was a scene where Volcaria plunges into the water after falling off of a cliff. For this panel, where Volcaria slowly sinks into the water, I focused on making her eye the brightest part of the composition, standing out dramatically against the darkness. It was exhausting, but moments like this reminded me why I love this project so much in the first place. As I powered through the final few pages, drawing late into the night and pushing past my exhaustion, I started to gain a whole new level of respect for mangakas and their teams. So shout out to all of the mangakas and their assistants out there. Making a manga is not easy. It's one of the hardest things I've ever done, and I only worked on a single short project. For mangakas to do this on a weekly basis with the looming uncertainty of whether their series will continue or get cancelled is nothing short of terrifying. Their workload seems endless, and even taking a break risks backlash from fans or cancellation from publishers. So please don't ever harass them when they skip a week or go on hiatus. They are regular people that need time to rest and recharge. Just 2 weeks of working until 4 AM, my back folded like a shrimp, and somehow gaining 10 pounds in the process, I began to understand why so many mangakas face serious health issues, and sadly, some even pass away, like Kentaro Miura, creator of Berserk. A bright new day dawned with the rising sun. At last, the final day has arrived, and I had to face the last 3 pages. With the deadline looming, due at noon the next day, I couldn't afford to procrastinate the panels I was avoiding any longer. One of the hardest pages to tackle was Volcaria breaking down and crying after the loss of her parents. I kept pushing this page aside because I wasn't looking forward to drawing the panels, but once I added text, which I actually didn't plan to do from the beginning, I think the page really came together, and in my opinion, this became the saddest page of my manga. Just look at her, it's heartbreaking. Even though I used a chibi style again for this scene, I think I was still able to convey the emotional weight of her loss and her mental breakdown. So from 10 a.m. straight through to 5:30 a.m. the next day, I worked non-stop, fueled only by stress, adrenaline, and sheer determination. My sanity was running on fumes at this point, but I managed to finish and submit the panels just in time. And after one of the most labor-intensive 2 weeks of my life, here is the completed manga. Enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm honestly super happy with how this manga turned out, especially for my very first attempt. Given the 2-week deadline, minus the thinking stage, I think I did pretty well. Sure, there are some scenes I would have loved to add more detail to, but considering everything, I know I gave it my all. Making a manga was something I always wanted to try, but I just kept pushing it for a later date. And now, having that checked off of my bucket list, I don't think I'll ever make manga again. I mean, unless another cool competition is around the corner, and if this video does get 500 likes, then maybe I'd consider it. Earlier, I mentioned how I was building off of Volcara's backstory, and her lore still has way more to unpack. So watch this video where her origin story begins, and how I came up with her reflections design. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. Anywho, have yourselves a lovely day. Bye.